Hey everyone, welcome to Makes You Wonder, the podcast that explores the infinite landscapes of human creativity and how it's being transformed before our very eyes. I'm your host, I'm Oskar Sarander, and every now and then, hopefully each week eventually, we're going to dive into the minds of creators, storytellers, artists, and entrepreneurs, uncovering the methods and secrets behind their ability to harness creativity and this human emotion around it, and how they bring their visions to life in whatever field that they're in. So join us as this is an exploration of everything human ideas and storytelling and how we use technology and methods to get to where we want to. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
I won't go that far in history, but it's probably Kobe Bryant. So Kobe is just like an incredible person on and off the court. His mentality, always being hungry and persistence and hard work, got him where he was. But apart from basketball, like he after his career, he was focusing on achieving many things, and he had like a media company that he was focusing on, and just like accepting every challenge with a smile and working hard at it. So I'd probably go for Kobe.
There's a quote from this French philosopher, I'm blanking on his name now, but that I really love. Like, it stuck with me. I saw it at a conference. I think Mark Cuban and Kara Swisher was talking about this at a conference I was at, and they said, like, when you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck. And I think that's quite fitting for what we're seeing with artificial intelligence now. Today we have this is the inaugural first episode, so bear with us as we stumble into this grand exploration and see where it takes us. And today I am honored to have a new, very close friend of mine that I see every single day with me as our first guest. And that is no other than Jason Bourne. Dimitris Nikolaou. Dimitris is my dear friend and co-founder of Wondercraft, the creative audio studio for brands and storytellers. He's originally from Greece, but with an American and Australian root attached to him. He studied at Imperial College in London, where he now lives. He got his master's in computer science, focusing on machine learning. But it's not all about algorithms and code with Dimi. He is also a professional basketball player, NBA. I don't know. We'll have to see where his career took him. And this is mostly from his university days. But after getting his degree, he also landed at Palantir, where he was working on some next level machine learning projects and even led a partnership with a government. Sounds pretty Jason Bourne to me, if you ask me. Today, he lives in London with his girlfriend and works out of the Wondercraft office in Soho, London. Dimitri, welcome to the first ever Makes You Wonder show.
What an intro. Thank you very much, Oscar. It's a great pleasure to be here. Great to be launching this together.
All right, I'm going to start off with some rapid fire questions here. Some wonderful questions, right? To get to know you a little bit. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Get nervous, because this is going to be really tricky. It's going to be a lot of gotcha stuff here. What's a book you think everyone should read?
Signal and Noise by Nate Silver. I think it's like a great first exploration of understanding some things about statistics and machine learning.
Okay, fantastic. Link in show notes. We're going to get that. What's your favorite city for a weekend getaway?
Well, I can go home and just say like Thessaloniki, Greece, but I won't do that. I think London, for most people in Europe, is an incredible spot to just has everything to do. So, but I guess I live in London, maybe not London for that. I'd say maybe Barcelona is probably like a great one in Europe.
That's a great one. Also, it's hard. You come from a paradise place. It's a little unfair. Nice. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird, definitely. I really cannot stay up at night. All of my friends make fun of me, but I just love the morning time, waking up and just no distractions, focusing on work at that time.
What song is currently your favorite or most played?
Right, so it's a little bit of, it's kind of sad that this is my favorite song at this point, but I do want to preface this by saying that I'm not a Eurovision fan usually. However, this year, the Greek Eurovision song is a killer. I think we're going for the win. We are recording
Really?
exactly a week before Eurovision finals. So I am predicting that Greece is going to win, and that is the song that is currently top of my playlist.
You heard it here first. This is going to be a viral moment that's going to do the rounds when you predict the Greek victory next weekend.
Yeah,
Exciting! I haven't heard it, so I have to tune
you
into that.
will. You will.
Oh, I no. Okay, let's play it as an anthem every stand up on Monday. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Wow, what a question. I won't go that far in history, but it's probably Kobe Bryant. So Kobe is just like an incredible person on and off the court. His mentality, always being hungry and persistence and hard work, got him where he was. But apart from basketball, like he after his career, he was focusing on achieving many things, and he had like a media company that he was focusing on, and just like accepting every challenge with a smile and working hard at it. So I'd probably go for Kobe.
That's a fantastic idea. Actually, really, that's a good answer. Where would you take him? Where would you go for dinner? Is it a Greek taverna?
Probably not. I wouldn't care too much. I'd probably want to go to like maybe we can make the dinner into like a quick basketball like one-on-one or just shoot around. So probably just like outside of basketball court, a canteen or something. I wouldn't care. Just like sit down with Kobe for sure.
Uh, that's a good one. What's one thing you can't live without?
I think my Garmin watch. Just important for running. I run every day. Yeah, I think it's very very important for me.
What's your current VO2 max?
I think 72, according to my Garmin. So
Okay.
I don't have like the proper measurements, but according to my Garmin, 72.
Oh, very respectable. That's a very respectable number.
Thank you, thank you.
What's your go-to comfort food?
Um, Probably a burger. I think if I were to do that, if I were to like eat something after a marathon or something, that would be probably a burger. But realistically, anything that my mother cooks, it tends to be a little bit closer to comfort food. So I think that's what most likely tends to happen.
Which movie can you watch over and over again?
Uh, La La Land, not just can, but do. It's just like, and you know that I'm not particularly into musicals myself. So the first time that I was watching it, I the first time before I watched it, I was a little bit skeptical, but just like such an incredible story, and both of the main actors, probably the best actors right now, and yeah, just like the songs as well, incredible. I think one of the movies that have stayed in history the most.
Fantastic movie. What's the most unusual talent you have?
That's a great question. Um, I think maybe that I can make a good salad in like 30 seconds. So maybe it comes from like Greek. Maybe it comes a little bit from like yeah, Greek impact there. But there's always like whenever we have dinner, there's always like very fastly prepared salad, and it's always really good. I promise.
Sounds great. I would like some. Let's make it happen. If you had to choose an entirely different career, what would that be?
I think that's an easy one. I'd probably be a basketball player. I really love. I used to play at a high level and just stopped at some point to pursue other things. And I still love it. I follow as a fan, but I don't have the opportunity to play as much. If I did, like it's my favorite pastime, and yeah, I still think that maybe there's a chance at some point in my life that I can still play pro. So I haven't ruled it out. Let me put it that way.
Keep the dream alive. It's the way to
Yeah.
do it. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Probably just two words, and I don't know if it's advice given as words for someone, but mostly perceived by following someone, and that's just to stay humble. Um, Basically, because there's always, you know, no matter how big you get, no point in glorifying things. There will always be bigger and better things ahead. And I think perspective here has been obtained primarily from following Roger Federer, probably one of the best tennis players, yet um, his poise comes from how humble, his humility, how humble he is, and just I like enormous respect for that athlete and as a person as well. So I would say that be humble.
Great answer. And jumping into a very different question, which app on your phone do you use the most?
I mean, apart from Slack, which is an obvious one, I think
Right.
Google Maps. Google Maps probably comes high at the top, and I think it's. I was talking about this with my girlfriend yesterday that it's. I feel it's the one of the services, one of the innovations that happened on the internet over the past 20 years that has been kind of underappreciated. Like I don't understand how people used to live without such a service, and you know, it's just incredible of having that capability on our fingers. So I think that's like the most commonly used.
I'd still be lost somewhere in my car if it didn't
Yeah,
exist. I mean,
exactly.
I can't drive around the block without a map turned on. So I absolutely agree with that. What's something you've done that most people haven't?
Uh,
Had dinner with Kobe Bryant.
that would be amazing. Maybe a couple of things. One that I'm like just was proud but lucky to be in that position was to hang around for a little bit with Stephen Curry, staying in the sports team. So he came by when I was at Imperial back in 2018. They had finished playoffs during summertime. He showed up to play basketball at the Imperial basketball court. The reason is that his wife, who is a chef and writes books on cooking recipe books, she was here on a she was in London for a promotional tour of the book. So Steph came with her, and the court at Imperial is one of the few courts in London that has an NBA 3-point line, which is further away in the NBA compared to European courts. So hence that's why he was at Imperial to train there. The funniest thing about all of this is that the gym was full, meaning not like the court. Like there's like a whole gym around the court, and like everyone was there. The funny thing is, no one cared. No one cared that Stephen Curry was there. When I saw him, I freaked out. And like I did nothing else during that day apart from like hanging out there, helping out as much as I could, and um, then taking a couple of pictures with him. Everyone else around just went about their day knowing that there's like a dude shooting hoops. So for me, that was like an incredible thing. So that's one thing. Then I'll just stay on the basketball theme, I guess, and just say that I have played basketball professionally for a little bit of time. So maybe that's like an additional point there.
Yeah, like a sports theme is going to be a part of our
Yeah,
conversation
I
here.
know. I
So,
wasn't planning.
uh,
I wasn't planning on going there too much, but yeah.
basketball is not my strong suit. During my Swedish bachelor party, we played basketball because it was fun for my Swedish friends to kind of do something of an American sport. I ended up having two people that broke their finger. That tells you something how great we are at basketball in Sweden. I guess. Hope I'm not insulting anyone who's actually very
Wow.
good in Sweden now, but that's I'm terrible at it. Love the game though; it's an amazing game. Last question here: if you could instantly become an expert in something, what would it be? I mean, you are experts in many things, but what's something that you're not but would wish you were?
Yeah, that's a great question. Uh, I think what I'm appreciating a lot lately, I think we've gone through a little bit of this with Wondercraft, is the just design generally. So I think it might like my answer might be a little bit broad, but generally like incorporating design in many things, and you know the creativity behind it and the coherence, the consistency that you can have if you like have some common brand and design guidelines. So example is like figuring out like knowing how to dress in a consistent but also beautiful way, and also drawing in a beautiful way. All of that stemming from one particular like character inspiration. I think I'm very far away from being good at that, but I would very much appreciate that. You know, that creativity. I have very high value. I really very much highly value that aspect in people right now. So I think that would be it.
That is certainly a skill that I admire as well. Be able to have the patience and learn how to really do it, but also I feel like that some people certainly have a knack for it, right? That artistic gene and be able to bring that out. Amazing. And that kind of brings us to why we're here, Dmitry. You and I share a passion for creativity, building a company really around that. And this show is about human creativity, something that I know you and I have talked a lot about as we're building Wondercraft, and really the technological evolution that is really changing the game for how we as humans create and again express our art and ideas. And that's exactly what we want to explore today. I think there is a lot in your background that I find fascinating, and how we've been working for the past many months now to really create something from nothing. In that journey, really, first of all, inspires me, and it drives us forward. But it's also in kind of a mystery many times how these things come to life, and the different methods and processes that we put in place to be able to create something, and what really drives that progress forward. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. I hope that sounds good with you.
It sounds amazing. Very happy to be here and very happy to do this.
We're going to first of all, let's settle this. Is it true that you have 3 passports?
It is true, yes. So what has happened to lead to this situation is that I was born and raised in Greece. However, my father and my mother, they are both of Greek descent. However, they were born and raised, my father in Australia and my mother in the U.S. in Greenwich, Connecticut. As a result, they're both American and Australian citizens respectively. And as a result, their passport, that nationality follows through, and as a result, I have obtained those passports as well. To this day, however, I have never used the Australian passport, which is sad because I've never visited the country. But I think that it's coming very soon, maybe in the next like 2 years or so. I think I'll be visiting Australia.
Oh yeah, we have to do that. We have a lot of Wondercrafters down there. Actually, it's a brewing market
Yeah,
for
yeah.
creators and storytellers
I,
and brands.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised how many like how big that market is, especially in the audio space. Quite a few big podcasts, many big podcasters coming from there. So yeah, like for sure, that's just an additional incentive of visiting my third nationality.
I think we'll take it on tour down there for sure. Well, let's start there. I mean, so we're doing a podcast here. We're obviously in the space of audio creation. Podcasting is certainly part of that whole ecosystem. So I'm glad to be here with you and explore this medium firsthand. But this is not your first kind of podcast experience, and you tell us about this. You used to have a podcast at some point. Can we talk about this, or are
Yeah,
you
I
trying to
did.
hide this on the internet?
Uh, Yeah, I think we are trying to hide it on the internet. So I can provide a brief summary. But basically, back in COVID, as many podcasts that are thriving now were born. That was the case for a podcast that a friend of mine and myself started. As is the case with many podcasts, we did primarily start just as a form of connecting with my friend more often. And I think we were also like Joe Rogan fans. So it was kind of like similar to that concept where you explore different topics rather than something specific. Um, it was really fun for as long as it lasted. I think about 10 episodes. There's a few things still on the internet, but most have been taken down. And yeah, it was just generally themed. Nothing like very specific. Great conversations though with people in our circle that we were impressed by and wanted to learn more from. And the outcome of it, like the result, the result of every episode was um, a decent 1 hour conversation. However, I was the producer of that show, and there like the output, the quality was not amazing. Music was all over the place. And I think more than anything, I realized how hard it is to put a podcast together. Potentially one of the reasons, meaning, figuring out the logistics and then recording and then making sure that all of the sounds were properly recorded, and there was no background noise. And then after all that, you have to do all of the editing, and that's like hell on its own. So I think that was potentially like, that lived inside me for a few years. Um, we stopped back in 2021, that podcast, and then we decided to like start Wondercraft. And the difficulty of recording, creating audio right now with the traditional process was a very big instigator of us getting together and starting Wondercraft. So that podcast alone, even though by no means it was like success, or I would not like recommend people to stop what they're listening right now and go listen to the other one. But it kind of led to this it instilled the concept of like how hard it is to create a podcast and how hard it is to create audio at a good quality, that a few years later led to Wondercraft. So all in all, very happy that explored that medium back then. Obviously has led to something great.
Right. It's kind of a sort of insight of the genesis of Wondercraft and making this easier for people, which is a big part of our mission, obviously. What is your relationship to podcasting in general, or rather, what is your diet, your media diet these days? How do you consume media, and how do you consume stories and in news as well as entertainment?
I don't follow the news too much. I do listen to a couple of podcasts that keep me updated on a weekly basis. I think in terms of like the media generally, and then I'll address the podcast question. I think I use primarily Instagram, and apart from that, it is just podcasts. Sometimes Twitter, but not as often. And in terms of like which podcasts, there is the weekly All In podcast that, you know, um, admittedly there are some moments that are not like amazing, but most of the show is actually really good. And the fact that there's people on that show that are extremely experienced, and they live in circles that discover things potentially a little bit earlier than the rest of us, and them sharing some information. And also like there's a little bit of like macro geopolitical information in there that I do appreciate that aspect as well. So that's definitely one. And then there's a couple of other shows that have great interviews. Lex Friedman obviously is a great one, and there's one that's a little bit more casual. Sometimes, if I just prefer something more casual, there's Armchair Expert with Dax Seppert and Monica Padman. That's a great one as well. And Smartlist the other day had a great episode with three presidents visiting that show, which is like something I've never seen. Three presidents all talking together. So that's like another great episode. I'd say those are primarily the podcasts that I consume on a weekly basis.
I mean, it's a strong guest booking game to get three
Yeah.
former presidents
Yeah.
on your podcast. Let's see how we can do that with Makes You Wonder.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there. We're starting
Yeah.
small here, everyone, friends. So, we touched on a few different things here in your background. Obviously, you're an engineering background. We're also very athletic and played professional basketball. So it's kind of quite the span when looking at creativity. So starting there, like what is growing up and throughout your education, your career, what is your relationship with the concept of creativity, and how would you define it for yourself?
Uh, I can't say that I invested too much time in my childhood on creativity. In fact, maybe I even considered it a non-material, impactful concept. And only in the past year, I'd say that I've grown to appreciate how important it is. But effectively, when I was younger, it was a lot about the way that I view creativity right now is a lot about like exploration and figuring things out versus exploitation, which is like you know what you need to do and you just need to operate. Um, and when I was younger, it was primarily me being placed, whether that was in school or like a basketball team, and just trying to become the best that I could based on this enclosed environment that was created for me. So, in a sense, the creativity aspect was outsourced to my parents for making those decisions for me. Apart from that, there was like no creativity in terms of like artistic or you know me expressing that through dressing up or anything. I think there was no creativity at all there. So I think that also became part of who I was even in my early adult years as well. So in all across all, like most of my 20s, and only in the past like 2 3 years when effectively started thinking about creating something new. And by definition, when you're creating something new, that's when creativity needs to come into play, right? Because there's no more um, there's no more rails that you can follow. You need to like create this space by yourself. um, and I think I went through a few iterations where rather than taking a step back and being creative and figuring out what is the best challenge that will take me closer to the optimization that I'm trying to solve right now, take me even higher. I might be speaking a little bit abstract. Apologies about that. Um, and I think I've only now realizing how important it is to like take that step back, think about the problem that you're trying to solve, and try only then exploiting and working towards that direction. Otherwise, it's very easy to be caught in a space where you're spinning your wheels without actually reaching that much. So, um, for me, creativity is still like I still approach it in a little bit of like this mathematical framework of exploit versus explore, in terms of an optimization. And creativity for me is that like that explore space, and you know, starting Wondercraft on its own is a lot about creativity and exploration, but it's also subtasks inside that, right? So like how can we reach this point where we can make people aware that Wondercraft is the place where anyone can create audio content in the most easy and fun and simple and collaborative way? How can we make people aware of that? And how can we make the platform that that requires continuous creativity? So every day now is solving challenges of creativity, um, even whether that is like coming into the product UX, or the brand that we're expressing to the world. We have worked with some strong designers in the past to help us in this direction, obviously, because myself, as I said, like I'm not the strongest in that space, but I'm learning continuously in that space. And yeah, I think that has been kind of the trajectory in my life in terms of creativity. I have now come to the place where I appreciate it immensely.
Well, there's a lot of creativity in everything you do, right? It's depending on how you kind of define it differently. It sounds to me like you are. Oh, it
Yeah,
strikes me as you are quite data driven in your approach to creativity, but you are very creative. Like seeing how you can go between that so quickly, I think it's a skill that I think that I am very impressed by. So let me ask you that, because before we even started recording here, I was in a frenzy of my kids who were trying to find their clothes for their jiu-jitsu practice, and they couldn't find it, and it was chaos. And then I have to like mentally prepare for a this conversation. Those kind of mental switching costs happens all the time, and I think it's one of the hardest things about entrepreneurship and leadership, especially entrepreneurship, when you're building a company and you have to wear so many hats. But you do that very well,
yeah,
Dimitri. Like you are quite impressed in how you can go from very analytical, data-driven conversations into let's just explore this, let's move on with it, and really making progress that way. But you said about exploring creativity. What gets you into that zone? Because it's important to kind of, I think the human condition is that you kind of have to be in a certain mind space to be able to
yeah,
explore freely, explore ideas. I mean, many times we talk about how do you get out of the kind of analogies of problems you're creating and starting from first principle to explore something new, in terms of finding solutions to a problem, or creating something that is more of a creative artful expression, right? Different forms of creativity there. But how do you approach those kind of mental switches, and how do you look at your day, for instance, if you have a creative problem that you have to fix?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think I figured out that it mostly comes in two spaces. And if I try to operate in like this creative space apart from those particular spaces, then it doesn't really work very well for me. What I'm referring to is the first one is the very first thing when I wake up. Again, going back to the rapid fire questions that we did, I very much prefer being an early bird. That morning time, sunrise, and just by myself thinking about the problems that I have to solve. And I don't know, maybe it's like a little bit stems a little bit from like you were just dreaming, so your mind is in more creative space. I don't know what it may be, or you're just like more rested, you have a fresh mind. But if I do have to solve something that's a little bit more creative, you need to like come up with some completely new solution. The first half hour, an hour after I've woken up is by far the most productive that I can be towards that direction. For some people, it's late at night, so the complete opposite. But for me, it's just like that early morning, just by myself focusing on that. And the second space is when I run.
Mm.
So often when I run, I get into like this, and again, I'm not referring to like very hard session where you're trying to break records and stuff, but mostly just go out for like a 10K, just casual pace. I feel that you find yourself right in the middle between absolute chaos and absolute calm, in which neither of which can be productive. There is something that's keeping your mind busy by like running, and there's also like just some endorphins released, or potentially a little bit of that as well. And your mind drifts off because you're just by yourself. So naturally, like I would start thinking about a lot of the things that are on top of my mind. And honestly, most of the solutions, or even stuff that are not like challenges that I'm trying to solve, but just new ideas. New ideas would pop up mostly when I'm running, as has happened in a decent amount of in terms of like the starting our entrepreneurial journey as well. So I would say those are like the two states in which I can become the most creative. Otherwise, it's very hard for me to, just block off some time, 2 hours in the day, and just force myself to be creative. I just won't be as good. I can try, and like we have tried doing these things together over calls. But it's pretty clear that you and Yusuf are pulling most of the weight in those conversations into like that creative. But yeah, if I need to solve a challenge, I'm gonna try and leverage one of those methods that I have found working for me in the past.
Yeah, I find that interesting because I think about this quite a lot in the early mornings. How do you, when you have that pocket in the morning when you can be creative, you have a fresh mind, and you feel like you have. I mean, I always look at it this way: we all wake up with certain amount of kind of energy points to spend throughout the day, and it's easy to just jump into the normal answering emails or getting into um, what's right in front of you rather than trying to focus on the. I think Jeff Bezos talk about this A plus problems and B problems, right? It's so easy to go for the B and C problems because they're right there. It's easy to tick those, and you get a little dopamine hit from just ticking those boxes. How do you deal with that? Because I think that's what most people struggle with, and I would argue probably in bigger organizations, there's a lot more time spent on the B and C problems rather than the A problems. Um, you strike me as a person that's very good at prioritizing that, but how do you approach that in that pocket?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and you're totally right that it's very easy to fall into that. And in fact, most of my days end up falling into that reactive um, position of solving B problems. I think the best way to try and solve this is by prioritizing. Maybe if you know that your morning is going to be the most productive, what helps the most is uh, making a priority list of on the previous day every day, keeping track of everything that needs to be done, and then in the morning knowing from the previous day what you're about to tackle, rather than having to wake up in the morning and just be reactive on everything that pops up on your phone, and or having to spend 15 minutes in creating that task list. Um, by far the most potent I've been is when I knew what I needed to do in the morning. I have found that rather than just waking up and sitting at my desk and starting to work, there's potentially some pre-work happening in the in the time of waking up. So getting your mind already being there is very important when you want to solve those A challenges. So I think that's like the most important thing. Basically, to summarize, it's basically figuring out when you're the most productive, making sure that you're giving enough space to solve that challenge, and making sure that your priority list is captured properly so that you're not reactive during that time when you need to solve that A plus challenge.
How important is that inspiration to get you motivated and get things done? Something that I think I struggle with it as well. Like I can try to set aside time, right, to try to solve an A plus problem. Maybe that is a something that requires a lot of cognitive kind of thinking of coming up with something, or noodling as we say. When you need to solve a problem, you have to explore the problem before you can kind of come up with a solution for it, right? And sometimes I struggle with setting, like you said before, setting time to be able to be creative. And once you reach that time, now I'm going to get started, and you're just stuck at the starting blocks. You don't really know how to get through that. Is there something that you do that makes you like find inspiration or find the motivation, or is it all about like routines, or how do you approach that problem of this time blocking solution and matching that with the mental mode you're in?
I think it's a great question. I can't say that I'm always the best at it. I think that I've spent a lot of time spinning my wheels and, before, like, basically procrastinating before you actually start the task. The biggest driver here is actually having to solve the problem because of time constraints. So like if you know that you have 2 hours, then like if you not just know, not like just calendar block, but actually know that in 2 hours you need to like have a solution for this. That's usually like the best driver for this, for not procrastinating. But I think apart from that, there's things that you can do, things that get you a little bit moving potentially. Taking a break rather right before you start, listening to some songs, listening to some music. For me, right now, like there's some playlists or actually some DJ sets on YouTube that really get me going because you kind of like get lost for a couple of hours there. And then apart from that, what really helps me is potentially sometimes thinking about some inspirational people that have potentially achieved things that you are striving for. There's been many of those. There's been many, character figures that I've been trying to uh, shape my entrepreneurship journey out of. And very recently, I think the biggest inspiration has been the co-founder and CEO of Canva, Melanie Perkins. I think so. I've just been consuming a lot of content of Mel on the internet, and she's just like an incredible force. Again, humble herself, going back to that trait, and stems a lot of her inspiration from creativity to go back to that point as well. Solving problems from a first principle always, and always trying to think about the target that's ahead, rather than getting stuck at the weeds, and trying to connect the dots between, if I solve this challenge, how much closer is it gonna get me to that final goal that I'm after. So that's kind of like the mental state that I am when I get stuck. And recently, actually thinking about what Mel has achieved has been an inspiration point um, to make me move a little bit more when I could have been stuck.
That's a good one. So you have people that you can turn to that inspires you. You have music that can kind of unlock that in you and kind of get you going to tackle or
Yeah.
get started more naturally, I guess. Thinking about that, I mean, thinking about creativity in general. Now we live in a time where we have a tools for anything they can think of, right? We have systems, you spoke of Canva, which is obviously a design tool. We have generative AI that is completely kind of taking over the at least the discourse and the conversation about creativity and what is human creativity. Is it replacing human creativity or is it helping us? What is your like, talk about the technological aspect of creativity. Um, what is your relationship to tools and systems? Let's start with like when you did you get kind of introduced to generative AI and AI in general? Was it through school? Was it through personal explorations on the side? What kind of how did you get started with artificial intelligence and that set of tool set?
So I'm realizing that I'm gonna touch on sports again. So I'm realizing how big of an impact sports have had in my life, but it was one of the primary reasons why I got into machine learning and even programming myself. So back when I was doing my undergrad, which was in economics and statistics, um, I was also playing basketball at a high level, and um, I was realizing that potentially one of the things that I wasn't, I was realizing that there was some like potentially physical limitations, as basketball is primarily like there's a big advantage in height, and which I was like kind of lacking potentially compared to my peers. So I was always trying to find the edge, and potentially an edge I could find there was statistics, and if I could derive some insights that could help me improve my game, that would potentially make me a better player. So what I started doing was following a lot the statistics that were being produced, the advanced stats that were being produced in the NBA, and um, I tried to apply the same methods to our own stats so that I can derive insights from myself. I quickly realized that there was not enough publicly available stats at my level that would really help me in deriving some of the advanced stats that they were in the NBA. But that was like kind of the instigation that got me going and understanding a little bit more about statistical statistical learning and algorithms, which was my very first partake in machine learning. There's a very famous course taught by one of the most well-known professors in the space called Andrew Eng. He gave a course that was on Coursera back in 2015, 2016, called I think Machine Learning 101 or something like that. And I took that course, which was kind of like the beginning of me going into the machine learning stuff, and that helped me in creating a dissertation as well when I was graduating from my undergrad. And from that point on, it's been a lot of exploration in AI, understanding all of its uses, all of its impact, how important it is in our lives. Um, and then generative AI came a little bit later. My first exploration in generative AI was probably closer to like 2019, 2020. Back then, there was what was quite fun back then was like this concept called neural style transfer, and that effectively allowed you to apply a style of an image to an existing image of yours. So you could take
Right. Yeah.
a Van Gogh painting, for example, the Starry Night, and apply it to a picture of us talking, and that concept was like really cool because you could just effectively create art from something personal. So started playing around with that and created a few frames for my family and friends. That was pretty cool. But that was like the beginning of generative AI, and then obviously 3-4 years later, we're talking about a completely different space where generative AI has impact in textual output, such as LLMs, but also in the audio space, which is something that we're working on a lot. And the quality of text to speech these days, how engaging the audio can be, is also like an additional reason of how our business was instigated, and from what our business was instigated. And the quality is just something else. And I guess the next modality that's missing right now is the video. I guess the image is there now. We have the image, we have the text, we have the audio. It's the next one that will be coming soon is video. And there are a couple of like models that have come out that are pretty good, like Sora, for example, and a couple of other companies like Pika and Runway are working on interesting things there. But for us, the focus is the audio space. There's the just like the innovation there right now is incredible, and it like we're very, at least myself, like I'm very happy to be in the fortunate position of leveraging this technology to enable more people to share their stories and produce audio content in a very fast and simple and easy and collaborative way. So that has kind of been my journey into the generative AI and how we reached where we are now.
We share a lot of these opinions, right, and these visions that these are tools that really empower human originality and storytelling. But you said a few things there that I think is in the topic in the media discussion and in the general discourse around AI, and the kind of more fearful voices out there about AI and how it is kind of stepping in on, like you said before, that style transfer. What in AI, how it is imitating art, or taking styles from artists, etc., and creating something new, which is a topic that I find quite fascinating, but also um, uh, kind of in there's kind of two different camps in there, right? In my opinion, I think there's a discussion around AI kind of stepping on human creativity, and then there's kind of the direction or the discussion that AI is just really tools. It's like a new pencil, it's a new brush to be able to create something, or it's the new printing press to be able to get your ideas faster out there in the world. What is your approach to this? I mean, we talk about this a lot as we're thinking about it, but personally, what do you think this will take us in the next 10 years in terms of human creativity and how we are expressing art and sharing information in a safe and in a way that it's good for humanity?
Yeah, so a couple of points on that. I'll first address like how I envision creativity and as a human and computer collaboration, and then I'll touch on the safety as well. So in terms of like how I think humans can operate in this world where generative AI is so impactful, um, I think that it's very hard for generative AI to actually be creative, right? Because it's I guess it does beg the question of like what is creative, and there are, you know, AI right now is creating songs that are very good. So to that end, like you can say that AI is creative, but I think ultimately, um, maybe people will always be oh, they will always be get used to this new medium, and to this new mode of creation, and will always appreciate the next evolution that will almost necessarily always come from humans. I don't see how any AI right now can create something that's so revolutionary that it will have such an impact as human creations do. So an example is like, a Taylor Swift song does have like a something magic to it, and obviously like there's billions of people that listen to those songs. I don't see how an AI creation will have that impact, because most of the time it is a lot about the stories behind the creations, rather than necessarily just just the output of it. So um, I think that if anything, the AI for now will always, not always, at least for now, will support human creativity, such as like a bouncing, you can bounce ideas off of it, and you can understand where it can take you, rather than be the ultimate source that will replace human creativity. So that's what I think, in relation to that. And then in terms of safety and rail guards around it, I think it is actually quite dangerous, and there's there's many challenges that need to be resolved. And I think it's the um, duty and responsibility of everyone that is offering such tools right now in the world to ensure that they can properly safeguard, so that not you know there's many benevolent people out there that will try to harm others for their own benefit, and this will happen. In fact, it probably already does. So I think we're probably going to go through a phase over the next few years where there's going to be a continuous conversation of the governments trying to stifle innovation by placing such guards. But I think we're going to need to find the balance between what can be done from from like startups out there, from businesses out there that can really increase productivity and creativity in people, but at the same time being very careful. I don't have like a better answer in the safety thing because it's still like kind of early. But there's a lot that there's for sure things that we're missing right now, and that we're gonna need to address. But yeah, that's kind of like what I'm thinking right now.
There's a quote from this French philosopher, I'm blanking on his name now, but that I really love. Like, it stuck with me. I saw it at conference. I think Mark Cuban and Kara Swisher was talking about this at a conference I was at, and they said, like, when you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck. And I think that
Wow, yeah,
that's quite fitting for what we're seeing with artificial intelligence now. But what really makes me an optimist in the space is that there's so much focus on that aspect. I see that in our industry with our many colleagues in the kind of the AI space in general, which is a very growing field, and that there is both pressure from society and from the general kind of discourse to initiatives and consortiums that are created to get ahead of this, because I think it's part of the growth and part of the really adoption of AI in various fields, to be able to really have a solution, have a solve for the shipwreck, so to
yeah,
speak. We're standing in front of this kind of paradigm shift now, right? AI is kind of a new paradigm. When we saw, I mean, maybe 15, 20 years ago, when social media started to become a thing, there wasn't a lot of discussion then around the safety and what could be the repercussion of uh, just that way of communicating. And now we see a lot of the kind of the hangover of these, like with youth and how we're consuming media in different ways. And I feel like maybe there isn't a perfect comparison there, but I think there wasn't as much of a open public discussion about that growth. It was just, this is great, social media and Facebook is just going to be great
right.
for everyone. When I think with AI, I think it's from the inception has been a discussion about the safety aspect. And I don't know if I'm right there, but it's a sense that I have, and I like that. Keeps me optimistic that we are keeping an eye on the shipwreck as much as the ship itself.
I totally agree. And I love that quote. Like, it's not one that I had in mind, but I think it's exactly relevant in the AI space right now.
And then there's the other aspect of what you said about creativity there. I think is interesting too. That where we are right now, I get a sense that the more people work with generative AI, or they use ChatGPT for their writing process, which is super common, obviously, um, these days. But the aspect that AI doesn't really project into the future, right? It's not about original idea. It really
Exactly.
extrapolates from the past of the information it already has. I think the idea that humans have this ability to go way beyond and think what you said before about first principles and really think about something brand new, although that is obviously influenced by something in the past. That makes this whole discussion so interesting to me, because there's always this quote also about, good artists borrow, great artists steal, and the
Right.
fact that we're always learning from something, right? There is no human out there that is coming out from a cave, haven't had any interaction with the world, and can create something. That's a case that we don't have. So everyone is influenced by everything that they consume and read and watch and interact with other people when they create something new. And that's what makes art so fascinating, right? To see how people can really break the mold and do something very, very different. And then in the small, in how we're creating businesses, and how we are um, creating stories, and in our case, helping great storytellers and brands, really make their voices and their ideas heard in various ways. I think it's so fascinating in terms of AI, that we're setting AI in a kind of different box of rules, that what can AI really learn from to help us here. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword there, right?
For me, it's like that's where I get a little bit confused, and I don't know exactly how the AI space will play out. And um, so basically, as you said, the way that humans learn is by, or humans create is by effectively connecting different dots from different influences that they've had in the past, whether whether they can point to that influence or whether that lives inside them and just gets manifested in a new song that they created. It is in fact um, some pattern that has formed from some learning that they've done in the past. And to be honest, that is exactly how machine learning and AI systems work, right? They form patterns. They try to predict what's going to be the next part that fits this pattern the most. So to that extent, and from that perspective, it kind of makes you wonder if the only difference in that is that humans have the capability of processing more information so that they can predict better what the next output of that pattern will be, or they can just like take it one step further and potentially have more inputs in that pattern creation. And potentially that is what makes the human creativity stand out more right now, effectively having more capacity in their processing unit. It's possible that that is, um, you know, where it all comes down to, and with increased power of processing units and a better, faster and better inference and better training on a larger training model, potentially it's possible that machine learning and AI is going to get even stronger and potentially compete with human processing power. There's actually one very, at this point, I think it's well known. There's this one of the leaders in the AI space, who's the chief AI scientist at Meta, Yan
Mhm.
LeCun. He tried to make the comparison between how much data, um, on one of the biggest LLMs right now, so like GPT-4, has consumed in order to be able to produce the data. It's produced the output that it does right now to make the inference. And basically, he calculated what's the bandwidth of a human in terms of sight, how much information they consume on a day-to-day basis, and basically tried to um, parallel, make an analogy here with information going into megabytes. So like how many megabytes per second a human can consume,
Mhm.
into trying to see how much information a person has in megabytes or gigabytes has consumed until some particular age, to compare that with the training data that a GPT-4 has seen. And he basically made the conclusion that GPT-4 is as smart, or has been trained on as much data as a 4-year-old. So I forget the maths now as to like how much someone can, a 1-year-old, what's the signal that they get. But yeah, basically until you're 4 years old, you've collected some petabytes of data of information that is parallel to like the training data that the GPT-4 has seen. And the argument there is, um, can even an army of 4-year-olds be as strong as someone that is, experienced and has seen more in a particular domain and is a knowledge worker, and like they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s? How many 4-year-olds can beat them? You can make that analogy to compare, like to make that a little bit simpler in comparing humans and AI. I thought that was like particularly insightful and maybe simplifying it, but I thought that it was a nice analogy.
Fascinating. Also, if anything is scary, it's an army of 4-year-olds. That frightens me more than
Yeah,
any notion of
yeah,
AI currently. Fantastic,
absolutely.
Dimitri. We're going to round out soon, but I wanted to kind of go into more of your personal tips and tricks here. You're a very productive person, yet see you with pen and paper quite often. What's your
Yeah.
toolkit? What's some recommendations that you can give us around how you keep organized, how you make sure that you are ready for that morning session when you are very creative and can go into that? What are some tools and process and systems that you use to be on top of your game?
Yeah, I think that when you see me with pen and paper, that's when the system breaks down. I try to have a system that does not involve pen and paper, although yeah, obviously it does break down. Notion is by far like the biggest productivity platform, I think, for all of the Wondercraft team right now. So we create tasks from one another on that. I try to use just, we have like different Kanban boards for all of the different functions of the company, and try to just leverage that. But I don't think it's enough. And like there's many reactive things that I need to take during the day. So I try to keep that as like a high level picture, and then also have just a running list of tasks that I need to do on that day. And I will create that list on usually the previous day after checking the larger view of all of the Kanban boards that we have across the functions of the team. So that's kind of like how I um, uh, make sure that I'm both productive and don't miss on tasks that I need to complete.
And then you always have the readily available playlist to make sure you get into the right zone.
Exactly. And if anyone's interested right now, primarily focused on there's this German DJ who goes from one amazing place to another on Earth, and he sets up just like a his console and creates a set talking about creativity, like just an incredible artist. His name is Chris Luno. Um, Quite kind of famous. I expect many people will know Chris Luno. Kind of looks like Oscar, come to think of it.
All right, we'll check it
Um,
out. All right, we're gonna play a little game in the end here, Dimitri. The game is called Kiss, Marry, Kill,
okay.
and you can kiss, marry, and kill any internet technology, future, present, or past. So, kissing a technology would be, something that you're fond of and want more in your life. Something you might be a novel idea or something you want in the future. Marry is something that you really want to live with for forever, and that you are committed to, always using, and killing, obviously, the most annoying or destructive part of the internet. Let's start with Kiss. What do you have?
Uh, I'm not gonna like go into like any crazy innovation here. I'm just gonna say YouTube. I think it's just like an incredible platform that has both enabled many people to like create careers, and enabled create like creators to just properly express themselves, but also just like a medium that's both for entertainment and learning purposes. It also connects people through the comments from different places in the world. I find that it's an incredible platform. There are some pitfalls, like there's been some like decently bad moderation on that platform in the past, but generally, I think as a whole, it's just like an incredible platform, and we're very privileged uh, to have something like that available.
Indeed. What? So that's a good one. That's a good little love affair with YouTube. What would you marry?
That's a great question. obviously right now I absolutely love ChatGPT. Like it's just incredible in my productivity. So I think it would be that. But I am gonna go a little bit deeper into the history of internet. And I think one of the most powerful concepts that have helped that help in quite a few places is the power of comments and forum voting. So Hacker News Recap is a prime example in the fact that there's a strong forum that vote on like what's the most important thing. It's just like goes back to like a democratic value of there's no one that's actually moderating. It's just like the power of the voice being given to the people, and everyone votes as to like
Mm.
um, what's the strongest thing. And this appears in many places. Reddit is another big one. Generally, like the power to the people is given in quite a few places on the internet. So I'll marry that one.
It's a good one, kind of the democratization of, I guess, information, and how we can participate in a productive way. Okay, what would you kill? What would you get rid of the internet? What's the most annoying to you? I know there's some really bad parts that we can get rid of, obviously, trolling and misinformation.
Yeah.
But what are some
Right.
parts
Right.
that some gripes that you have with technology?
I think I'm focusing on two things. The first one is dating apps. I think just like ugh, generally, I get it. I get the necessity, especially in like fast-paced world, big cities. I'm not gonna lie, I have used in the past, but it's just like it doesn't work. It's not nice. It's not fun. No one likes them. So were they not were they not like were they not part of our society, I don't think anyone would be worse off, uh, because people would be forced to do other things to meet people. So I'll just say that that's my the biggest one. But I will add one more here, and I'll say I absolutely hate TikTok. It's just extremely addictive, and again, one more thing that no one would be disappointed if it went away. I guess there's like a whole platform there. Okay, I'll take it back. Many people would be
Many
disappointed
people
if it
would
went
be quite
away, but
disappointed. I think
yeah,
there's an uproar about that. Is it because of the addictive nature of it, or is it the information itself, or where it's coming from, or is it all of the above?
I think it's the combination of the algorithm and the information that it leads to uh, creating to society, and as a result impacts society. So it's funny to see how an algorithm decision can have an impact as to what content is available and popular on TikTok, and how that actually goes back into society, and the impact that the content available on TikTok has. And as an example, people started dancing a particular way in the world, like just because it was like on TikTok, or people have like less of an like potentially even more importantly, people have less of an attention span. Kids have like Gen Zers have like a much shorter attention span, just because of learning how to consume media that way. So I think it's primarily the impact that it has on society, rather than the platform itself.
Two good things on your kill list. I mean, that I agree with. Dating apps. I'm gonna date myself here because I kind of met my wife when that wasn't a huge thing, right
Yeah.
in the cusp of when big dating apps started like
Right.
really blowing up. But yeah, go out and meet people. I mean,
Exactly.
strike up a conversation. I think that's the most fun about being out and meeting people.
Yeah.
The real way. And I sound like an old fart here. When it comes to TikTok, I agree with that. I wouldn't, to chime in on my opinion here, I wouldn't mind a ban, especially for teens and for kids. I'm quite for that legislation if there is such a thing happening, because of the attention that it takes away and the peer pressure. You can't have, my daughter is almost 12, and it's impossible to take that away from her since all of her friends have it and she feels left out and she doesn't have it. So it's a constant battle of trying to not monitor it per se, but being able to control it and portion it out in a healthy way. And I'm struggling to see that there is a very healthy way about it. So yeah, I agree with that. There's so much good with the internet, but there's certainly some dark sides, and a lot of dark sides to that you have to navigate through life. Lastly, where can people find you, Dimitri?
Yeah, so as I said, like I do use Twitter, but not a huge amount. But you can find me there at Dimi Reads Things, all one word, or on LinkedIn if you just type Dimitris Nikolaou Wondercraft. I'm sure that you'll pop up, and I'd be happy to connect with people that are interested in this new space of leveraging generative AI to create. I think there's a lot going on there, and would love to hear more from other people.
Well, Dimitri, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the first episode and the inaugural show of Makes You Wonder, with brought to you by Wondercraft. We are actual real human people.
It's my pleasure.
Here, we are voicing our own ideas here, but there's many different ways you can do that.
If I can have one last comment here, I'd say that I'm really looking forward to what's to come. There's some great guests that are already booked ahead, and Oskar, I kind of suggested that we should do this because of I think that you're like an incredible host, and you get people you can have a great conversation with people. So and we're going to be present on YouTube as well, so anyone that's listening, I definitely recommend. It's just a different experience when you can watch. Oskar is using this term podcast lately, so watching the content is even more enjoyable. So definitely go and give us a subscribe on YouTube. There's going to be a lot coming from us in that space.
Amazing. Well, thanks for having you. I'm completely losing it now. Oh, thanks for having you. It's been a pleasure. Always been a pleasure.
Thanks for the invite.
It's fun to talk to you when it's not our stand up and it's a grind and all of our Kanban boards, and just have a free flowing kind of conversation. It's been really enjoyable. And yes, this is the first episode, and we certainly have some plans for this as we go along. And I'm so excited to keep working with Wondercraft and the evolution that we have. We have so many cool stuff coming up at Wondercraft the next couple of weeks. You'll probably also find Dimi on our newsletter that we're going to relaunch soon. That's going to be great. Give us a follow. I mean, we're distributing this show on RSS feeds on wherever you find podcasts, as well as YouTube, as Dimi said. So please give us a follow to see how this goes. And who we're going to bring on next. So without further ado, thank you everyone for joining us. If you listened this far, immensely appreciative of your time.